Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 6 of Hondos HoloNet, a podcast where we talk all about Marvel, Star Wars, DC, pop culture, sci fi, everything in between. Um, my name's Vincent. I'm your host. And let's begin. So, a few little housekeeping things. We're still growing, we're doing real good. Um, Next week, we're going to have hopefully all of this cleaned out. And right now, I'm moving out of my room. So the studio is a little messy. So we'll have it cleaned up and hopefully a lot more displayed next week. Um, we'll also be going back to my other camera next week because that's charging up. I found the battery and the battery charger. So we'll be going back to that next week. Um, and yeah, and today will be the first day with an official thumbnail. Finally, I've been meaning to make one. I was going to make one last week. I was going to make one the week before for WrestleMania, but I didn't do that episode. So yeah, so this week we'll have a lot will be changed, and then next week we will also, kind of be better in here. All right, so let's begin. So today we're going to talk all about DC. I am a big DC Comics guy. I'm DC over Marvel any day of the week. The only thing that beats DC for me is Star Wars. So, but I'm a big DC guy. I started DC in 2016 when my grandmother showed me The Flash. We mentioned this in the episode with Preston, um, in episode 2. Yeah, so showed me The Flash, and this is why The Flash is my favorite superhero, especially DC hero, because he brought me into the DC world. He is the reason why I'm a big comic guy. He's, again, like I said in the present episode, he is the reason that this whole podcast is even a thing because of my love for the Flash. So so I started the Flash in 2016, and I went on with the Arrowverse, and I love the Arrowverse. The Arrowverse is my favorite thing DC probably has ever done. I know it got rocky towards the end, and we'll get to that, but I know it got rocky towards the end, but I still loved it. I stuck through it, and I've seen every Arrowverse show that was put out by CW. Um, so yeah, I'm a big Flash guy. Flashpoint is my favorite comic. I read Flashpoint back 2019 maybe, and I have two versions. I have the standard version, and then for 1 year for my birthday, I got the sketched out pencil version, and I read both of them. I love both of them. The story of Flashpoint, the whole idea, um, really shows how Barry is just human, and he wants to bring back his mother as anybody would. One thing the Arrowverse did real well, not Flashpoint, but they did this idea that Barry loves his mother and would do anything to bring her back. Same thing with the movie. Again, both of them didn't do the Flashpoint story the best, but they still brought out something in Barry that hey, he's a human, he loves his mother, and anybody would bring back their mother if they could. So Flashpoint has always been my favorite. The comic is the best adaptation, followed by the animated. I would go probably then the movie, then the Arrowverse. Unfortunately, although I loved season 3 of The Flash, I think the Arrowverse was just lacking the characters and lacking the ideas. Um, but the Arrowverse, again, they did a great job on The Flash, up until maybe season 6, but it's still, yeah, we'll get there. But but Flash, like I said, Flash, my favorite superhero, followed by Superman, Green Arrow. Those are my top three. Superman, I've never been a fan of Superman, and I regret it. But even when I was a kid, I was like Batman all the way, Batman over Superman. Um, until more recently, um, I started becoming a Superman fan during Superman and Lois when that first came out. I started a Superman Instagram page in 2023, and that died out right away because I didn't have the time to keep up with it. But I had that. I became big Superman fan, let's say about 2021, 2022. And ever since then, he's been second on the list. And this movie coming up, I cannot wait for. And I said followed by Green Arrow. That is because of the Arrowverse as well. So the Arrowverse got me obsessed with the Flash and with Arrow. Um, Oliver Queen, everything about Oliver. Um, I like that he's not Batman. I think Batman is a great character. I think Batman is fantastically written. I just think he's overhyped, and I like the characters that aren't lesser known, like James Gunn is more of the lesser known type Peacemaker Creature Commandos, which he makes fantastically, don't get me wrong. But I like the characters that are lesser known but are still major players like Green Arrow, like the Flash is now becoming a main, but like Green Arrow, like Booster Gold or the Atom. Those characters has always stood out to me because have always stood out to me because they are different. They are different. They're not overliked, or there's not so many people liking them. It's it's kind of kept to me because there's a select few people I know who love Green Arrow, and we get to talk about it and we get to love it. And there's not a crazy fandom of people like there are with Batman, like there are with Zack Snyder or James Gunn. There's just people who love the character for the character, and that's one reason why I'm more of a lesser known guy. I wanted to talk a bit about my favorite movies from each era of Superman. From DC. So by each era, I mean before the 2000s, then 2000 to 2010, then 2010 to today. We'll go 2024 before 2025. So first era, Superman 1978. This is a movie I saw more recently. I think October of last year I saw it, and I fell in love with it. It has to be my favorite DC movie ever made. Um, I love Chris Reeves Superman. I love the story, the music, the John Williams, of course, composed a fantastic uh, soundtrack for that movie, and I will always love that movie. I've only seen the first two. I still have to watch three and four before this new Superman comes out. But Superman 1978 from DC movies before 2000, hands down, that's the best, and that's arguably my favorite movie that DC has ever made. We'll see what James Gunn makes coming up. Um, okay, so 2000 to 2010, Batman Begins. If I'm not mistaken, this is 2008, I think, 2007, something there. But Batman Begins, I loved all three of them. I thought all three were good. Surprisingly, The Dark Knight is my least favorite of the three. I think Begins and Dark Knight Rises are right above, with Dark Knight Rises and Dark Knight fighting over the number two spot. But Batman Begins, I love Liam Neeson. I love seeing him set up the Batcave, seeing him set up the Batsuit, working with Lucius Fox to get the Batmobile and all the different. I love seeing the origin of Batman, but not necessarily like all the time seeing Martha and Thomas die, which we did see in that movie. But we see that over and over. We never really get to see Batman starting out from nothing, building up as a getting a suit, getting a Batcave, getting the Batmobile. And Michael Keaton's, we saw he already had all that. Same with Robert Pattinson's, he already had all that. Ben Affleck, the DCEU is already into it universe. So we didn't see it. So Batman Begins really showed us getting him getting the suit, getting becoming Batman, becoming you know, going from Bruce Wayne to Batman and the League of Assassins to Batman. Um, so Batman Begins is my favorite from that. And the Suicide Squad 2021, I think. Yeah, 2021. By far my favorite DCEU movie. James Gunn is my favorite director. He did Guardians of the Galaxy. He did the Suicide Squad. He did Peacemaker. He's doing Superman. He's doing all these things moving forward. And we'll get more into James Gunn in a bit. But the Suicide Squad, I just rewatched it this morning. It was done so fantastically. James Gunn was really good, and he did the Suicide Squad really good. He brought out all the characters. He gave, again, we're going into the lesser known characters like TDK, even Weasel, who now, after Creature Commandos, after the Suicide Squad, he's a little more known. But at the time with Suicide Squad, TDK, Savant, Weasel, Bloodsport, Peacemaker, Ratcatcher, all these characters. King Shark is one of the most known characters besides Harley Quinn in that area. Rick Flag is more known because of the first Suicide Squad, but he still is fairly, kept away from the rest of DC unless you read the comics really heavily. But he brought out all these characters and he made them so enhanced. Now, again, Weasel dies right at the beginning, and excuse me, and TDK dies right at the beginning, so you don't get to meet these characters. Savant, in the little bit you see him, he's still brought out really well, and I think James Gunn is really good at bringing out these characters who we don't know. I mean, it's always been like that. James Gunn did Guardians of the Galaxy, and nobody knew the Guardians of the Galaxy until the movie. Again, unless you're like really into these comics. And for somebody who started out because of a TV show at this time, I learned the characters from the movies and the TV show. And then I went to read comics after I fell in love with all these different characters. And I moved on to read more comics. And then I'm like, oh, okay, this is, I piece it together. So I think James Gunn did amazingly with the Suicide Squad, and it's by far my favorite DC movie over the past 25 years. Okay, there's something I wanted to talk about. I am not familiar with the series. I've heard great things about it, but I did spend a good bit of money to get almost every issue that's been out. It's a fairly new series. I think it came out in September, October. It's the Absolute series. So I got Absolute Green Lantern, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Martian Manhunter. I got all the Absolute series that are out as of now. I haven't read them yet, but from people like Preston, who I had on episode two, and a few other people, and just reading, apparently, Absolute Universe is one of the best comic series in a while. And I don't know about I've heard Batman is fantastic. I heard Superman is fantastic, and I heard Martian Manhunter is the best. So I'm going to start tonight or tomorrow to actually get into the series and get to break it down, and eventually I'll be able, when we get through and I get through them all, I'll do an episode on the Absolute series. So Absolute, I really want to get into it. I don't really have much to say because, again, I don't know much. I didn't read anything, but I've heard great things from everybody I've talked to who read any of the series. So these are something I'm going to check out, and I might do some YouTube short or something to talk about these books because I'm excited to get into them. All right, you heard me before talk a little bit about the Arrowverse. The Arrowverse is what got me into DC, what got me into superheroes, period. Like I said before, The Flash was my entryway, and I've loved The Flash. Even when it got low, I part of me was just like, yeah, The Flash was always there and always it always kept me interested no matter how down the show was. So The Flash, we're going to rank all the Arrowverse shows. We're not going to rank seasons. That'll come in an Arrowverse episode, which we will do eventually. I'm rewatching it now on Arrow season 2. So when we get through the whole thing again, I'm definitely going to break down each. I'm going to break down each show. So we're going to start. Obviously, The Flash is number one. Seasons one, two, and three were phenomenal. Four and five were just okay, and the first half of six was all right. All right, okay, so maybe they were phenomenal. Then four and five, let's say, was good, and then the first half of six was just okay. I loved Reverse Flash. I think he's the best villain of the Arrowverse. I think they really brought out the rivalry between the two of them. That's something like the Flash movie didn't do well because I know it wasn't the Reverse Flash in the Flash movie, but something that the rivalry between the two characters, between a hero and a villain at all, needs to be out and needs to be done well. The Flash movie, on the Flash, again, I've saw the movie a couple times. I didn't hate the movie. It wasn't anything special, but as my favorite superhero, I have to be fair and say that it did interest me in some way. Michael Keaton's my favorite Batman. Ezra Miller, I could get over the fact that he's not the best person, but I enjoyed his Barry a little more than I did in Justice League. And Sasha Calle in as Supergirl was fantastic. But the rivalry between the Flash and the Dark Flash in the Flash movie just wasn't built up the right way. And I know it's a lot easier to do that in TV shows, but the Flash did it so well between the Flash and Reverse Flash. And obviously people think, oh, it got repetitive throughout the series. He was still the villain. But it kept you interested because the Flash has a hatred for the Reverse Flash that most people wouldn't understand. And the Reverse Flash, for reasons that, we find out through the show, just has this burning hate for Barry. And it's because whether he's jealous or angry or wants to be him or whatever, whatever version that they go through in whatever series, they always bring that out. And the Flash did a fantastic job. And Reverse Flash was my favorite villain of um sorry, was my favorite villain of the Arrowverse. And I thought that, like I said, season one, two, Zoom, Savitar, DeVoe even were great villains. Bloodwork was a pretty good villain. Cicada was a little iffy, but season seven, eight, and nine of The Flash kind of dropped down a little bit where I was disappointed because, like I said, they did fantastic in one, two, and three. And then for seven, eight, and nine, especially the final season, to take a step down, the dialogue felt lazy. The camera works, the CGI, it all felt like it got down, but the Flash holds a special place in my heart and it has to go at number one. My second favorite is Arrow. Now, I really don't have much to complain about with Arrow. I think the whole way through, Arrow was a pretty solid show. I mean, it was good one, two, five. Those seasons were just fantastic. My favorite episode of the Arrowverse is probably, or one of them is that Prison Break episode in season seven where him and Bronze Tiger work together. That was just a great episode. Um, Four was a weaker season, three was a weaker season, and six were weaker seasons, but three was actually better than four and six, but they were still on the weaker side. But even then, the show just carried something. I mean, Oliver Queen as Stephen Amell, excuse me, as the Green Arrow, and as Oliver was fantastic. I loved it. I loved Arrow, and rewatching it now, knowing what's going to happen, and I could pay attention to the small details. I'm really looking at it as a way of like, hey, look at the action here, look at the camera works here, look at the CGI here, look at the way Stephen Amell presents himself here and how it differs from here, or the flashbacks onto the island, how you could see the mannerism change between young Oliver Queen and then back from the island, older Oliver Queen. So Arrow did a great job, and even like I said, all the way through seven, eight, season seven and eight, season six, five. Five is one of the best seasons. Five and two are my two favorite seasons. I always like two a little more because I'm a bigger Deathstroke type of guy. I've mentioned it before. I got to meet Manu Bennett, and just last year I got to meet Colton Hayes, who played Roy Harper, and they're both pleasant to talk to. And Colton Hayes actually talked to me a little bit about what it was like on set, and he said, great things, and he said that it was so much fun working with these other guys, and that he enjoyed it, and that he still talks to them. He told me a lot, and it was real cool to get to meet and hear a little bit about what it was like on the set of Arrow. But again, Arrow, I really don't have much to complain about it except here and there. I feel like Damien Dark fit more on Legends of Tomorrow than on Arrow because of the magic. But they made it work. They realized that Arrow season four was the weakest and that maybe magic doesn't fit, so they took a step back and they re-went about it. And again, the rest of the way through, Arrow was just fantastic. Oliver's death was sad. Crisis on Infinite Earths was a weaker crossover, but Oliver carried it like he did with most of the crossovers. So Arrow, again, only reason it's not number one is because The Flash holds that special place in my heart. But Arrow is a fantastic show and is number two. Number three is Superman and Lois. I got to Superman and Lois late. I think it came out in 2021. I watched it either, yeah, I think I watched it in 2022 back when I was a senior in high school. And I watched it every day with lunch. I sat by my music room and I had it on my phone. I downloaded the episodes on HBO Max and I watched it. Superman and Lois is a great show. I mean, all the way through. Season two, one and two, one, two, and three were all good. One and three were my favorites. Season two kind of were, it was a little on the boring side, but I still enjoyed watching Tyler Hoechlin, who in Supergirl wasn't the best Superman, and I don't think it was any fault of his own. I think it was the writing, it was the direction that they were going to. It was a Supergirl show, so they needed to give Supergirl a little higher, the high ground at least a little bit because it wasn't Superman's show, but but then they bring him to Superman and Lois, and oh my gosh, he was a fantastic Superman. Uh, Bitsy Tulloch was a fantastic Lois Lane, and they didn't have to, Bitsy Tulloch might not have looked the most like Lois Lane, but this is a prime example of you don't necessarily have to look like the character to play the character. I think that's what a lot of people forget when it comes to casting or these fan casts that come around. For example, Charlie Hunnam, who I always thought looked like Oliver Queen, I think everybody does. He thinks that he can't do the character justice. So just because he looks like Oliver doesn't mean he has to play Oliver. Stephen Amell looked nothing like Oliver Queen, and then he did it, and he did fantastic. So again, Bitsy Tulloch was a fantastic Lois Lane. Alex Garfin was a great Superboy. Uh, the last scene, I remember all of them. Flying was great. Uh, Wool Parks, fantastic. John Henry, he um, he was one of the characters that I loved throughout the whole series. He was different. He wasn't from the Earth. He wasn't necessarily a Superman supporter at first, but his character arc is completely different from the rest because yeah, Superman, Lois Lane, the twins, they all have this character arc where it's like they overcome things. And throughout the show, Lois's cancer, Alex, Superboy, John's oh my gosh, Jordan's depression, Jonathan's drug use, like all these things that they will have to overcome, while John Henry kind of just had he wasn't a fan of Superman because of what happened on his Earth. And then you go through the series and you find out, well, it's not necessarily his fault. He was married to Lois on his Earth, and Superman killed him in front of him on live TV. Um, but then he overcomes that and he becomes friends and partners with Superman, and then he joins the DOD, and he just has a fantastic character arc throughout. Natalie shows up, his daughter, and he has to overcome being now a parent to a child who lost her mother while dealing with the same child who is dealing with the doppelganger of her mother. So I don't know. I think all the characters of that show really had good, besides Lana and Sarah. Oh my gosh, I couldn't tell which one I was more annoyed at. But nothing against them because that's the character that they had to play and they did it phenomenally. I think if you hate a villain, not that they're villains, but if you hate a villain, they're doing their job right. So if in the show somebody pisses you off like Sarah and Lana did continuously, uh I count that as a win because they did what they were supposed to. So again, I think that whole show phenomenal. I think that all the cast did great, and that's a show that even if you're not into the Arrowverse, you don't have to be. Definitely check that one out because that one is kind of its own universe, its own little thing, and they didn't bring anything from the Arrowverse besides Diggle every once in a while. But Diggle could be in anything whenever. But yeah, so if you're definitely interested in Superman and you haven't seen Superman and Lois, that's a definite check out because again, it's not tied to anything and you could watch it and you could enjoy it on its own. All right, after that is Legends of Tomorrow. Legends of Tomorrow had an obvious decline throughout the show. Season one, two, three, and parts of four were fantastic. Five, six, seven. I think it ended on seven. I always get confused with the seasons of Legends of Tomorrow. If it's unless it's right in front of me, if I'm going off the top of my head, or even if I have it like kind of written down, I'm completely lost. So, and I'm reading off my computer if you can't tell from the screen going dark and then brightening up again. But Legends of Tomorrow. Legends of Tomorrow was great. It was. Sarah and was great, and Ava was great, and Adam and Nate and all these characters, right? Were all really good characters. Season two was my favorite. I think the Legion of Doom were great villains for this story that they were telling in Legend season two. I always couldn't couldn't pick my favorite between Commander Steel and the Atom. It was always going back and forth. I love Ray Palmer. I loved him in Arrow. I loved him in Flash, and I loved him in Legends. And when they introduced Nate into Legends of Tomorrow, I just, he reminded me like, oh, he's a history guy. I'm a big history guy. He he has all these powers that's just steel. It's turned into steel and that's it. But he does so much and he was a great character. So Legends of Tomorrow, I'm not going to go too much into it because later on it did go down and the aliens was weird and yeah, but it was overall at the beginning I enjoyed it, but it was better than the last four that I'm going to talk about, which nothing against the last four. I think the last four all had their moments, but Legends of Tomorrow I think holds another place in my heart of the team that they brought together and the characters that they brought out from each of the shows because again it was really just Legends of Tomorrow was just a show for all these side characters. Sarah, Adam, who else was it? Sarah, Adam, Mick, and Captain Cold. You know, all these characters who weren't mains in their own respective shows, they came together and they ended up doing real well. Firestorm was another one. So yeah, so Legends of Tomorrow at four. Okay, at five, Stargirl. Stargirl is technically, I don't know if people will actually count it Arrowverse. I count it as such only because towards the end they changed it to CW and then they didn't intertwine it, but they brought up all these different characters. I could have added Titans to the list. I don't think Titans is Arrowverse. I think Titans was Titansverse with Doom Patrol and Swamp Thing. And I'm not going to get into those today. That'll be another time. But Stargirl I added for because it moved to CW. I would have added Swamp Thing, but Swamp Thing moved to CW and only re-released the first season, so there's no point in talking about Swamp Thing. So Stargirl, back to Stargirl. Um, Stargirl was great. I mean, I loved all three seasons. I loved seeing the JSA, uh, old JSA, new JSA. I think the JSA are a great team, and I really want the one thing I want James Gunn to explore is the JSA. I think with the right person, the JSA can shine. And I think Stargirl was just the tip of the iceberg with the JSA, new or old. I don't care what version of JSA. I think Stargirl was great. I think seeing Starman coming back was great. I think Our Man, Rick and Rex, Doctor Midnight. Uh, I love Wildcat, both versions. So seeing all these characters, I think James Gunn can do a great job of, and I love the way that Stargirl did these characters. Oh my gosh, I can't think of his name. Um, Stripe, yeah. I can't think of his old name. It's not Stripey. Is it Stripey? I don't think it's definitely not Stripey. But Stripe with him and him in the suit. I can't think Luke I can't think of the actor's name. Luke Wilson. Owen Wilson's brother. Luke Wilson. He did fantastic in the show and he was great as Stripe and he was a great stepfather. Okay, make a long story short, everything about Stargirl I enjoyed. Um I don't think it was as good as the first four. At least when Legends was peak, I definitely don't think it was as good as the first three. Um, but at the peak of Legends of Tomorrow, I do think Legends was better. But Stargirl, again, solid story throughout. It really explored all characters the way it should, and characters who you wouldn't think be in it, like Solomon Grundy. He was in it, and he was a great little. They played with him real well, and they did him well. So Stargirl, I have to put right in the middle. Number six, Supergirl. Um, I think Supergirl fell too hard, too fast. I think Supergirl was a great show. I really liked it. I did. I'm one of the few, but the first three seasons of Supergirl, and then four was my favorite, but the first three seasons of Supergirl just were great. Um, then you get to five and six, and it kind of slows down. Four, I know I'm in the minority, but I loved four. Agent Liberty was such a well-written supervillain, and Sam Witwer. I mean, regardless of what he's in, DC or Star Wars as Maul, he's great. So I think Agent Liberty was the best written villain in Supergirl. Uh, Mon-El used to be my favorite when I was younger. I think as I got older, Martian Manhunter really was the one who kept me in the show at the beginning because he is the character I knew the most about. I used to say that I like Supergirl more than Superman because I wasn't very versed in DC, and the only things that I've watched at the time were Flash, Arrow, Supergirl, and Legends of Tomorrow. But but no, I loved Melissa Benoist's Supergirl. Mon-El, Chris Wood was great. Nia Nal, all these characters who aren't big in the comics besides Supergirl and Superman and Martian Manhunter. Mon-El, Dreamer, Brainiac 5, Jimmy Olsen was in it. He was Guardian. Forgot about that. He was great. Um, yeah, so I mean, Supergirl, they stood out for such a good amount of time. Like I said, season one, it got a little bit to get into it, and then you're into it. Seasons two, three, and four, I thought were great, but then it just fell off so hard so quickly. And I think that's nobody's fault. I think it just what else was coming out around that time between the MCU, between some of the greats of the DCEU, the Flash and Arrow crisis. Like there's so many things coming out that I think it did just unfortunately take a hard fall in seasons five and six. But Supergirl again, I think Melissa Benoist and all the actors and actresses of that show did a great job throughout, and they really stuck through with it, and I think they're proud of it, and I think that it's great as long as the people who made it had a good time making it. But Supergirl unfortunately has to go down just because of how fast it fell. Um, but that might change. I don't know. I'm rewatching, like I said a couple times, I'm rewatching the Arrowverse, so I'm gonna get to Supergirl. I'm gonna rewatch Supergirl, and hopefully, I enjoy it. And I mean, I always have, and every time I rewatched episodes, I've enjoyed those episodes. So hopefully, fingers crossed that it's great. And when I rewatch it, I'll do another Arrowverse episode and I'll talk about all of them more in depth. Um, all right, number seven, I think, right? Yep, number seven, Black Lightning. Um, I think Black Lightning was a fantastic show too. Season two, season four were great. One and three kind of lacked. I think I'm gonna blank on almost all the actors' names and actresses besides China and McClane because it's China. Um, but I think uh, the guy who played Black Lightning did great. Uh, the guy who played not Gambit, that's a Marvel superhero, Gamby. He was my favorite part. I really liked his sidekick Alfred type role. But anyways, I think that show I did great for what it was trying to do. I just think that show had a weak story. I think there were plenty of there weren't plenty of Black Lightning comics and storylines that you can go to like you can for the Flash or Stargirl or Supergirl or Arrow or Superman, right? So and again, Legends of Tomorrow was Sidekick show, so they just had to bring it off from the other shows. But when it comes to Black Lightning, there aren't many comics that at least I'm aware of that you can actually go down the line of. So I think that they did the show, they did it as well as they could, and I applaud them. I enjoyed some of the arcs, I enjoyed some of the seasons, some of the seasons I didn't hate. I don't think I really hated any of the seasons of the Arrowverse, but I disliked a good many of them towards the end. And I think Black Lightning was one of the shows that they were just, I liked half of it, I didn't like half of it. But again, I think that everyone in that show did amazing. The powers, Black Lightning suit, all of their suits. I mean, I think that show just that it stood out for what it was, and I am excited to see if James Gunn does go a bit into Black Lightning in the future because I want to see him. I want to see him partner with characters like Superman and with the Flash because they teased it a lot. I mean, we saw it in the Flash and the Arrowverse, but they teased it a lot throughout the Arrowverse that he'll be a crossover. But for the longest time, we weren't sure if Black Lightning was actually tied into the Arrowverse or if it was his own thing, kind of like how we are with Supergirl. But eventually, with Stargirl, I mean, but eventually they did confirm when Black Lightning met with the Flash and the last crossover. So again, I hope Black Lightning can come out more in the future, but unfortunately, it wasn't the best show in the Arrowverse, and that's okay because again, I enjoyed it, and there's a lot of people I know who did enjoy it and who enjoyed the whole thing. So I'm just here to tell you what I thought. And the last one, Batwoman. I think that comes to no surprise from a lot of people. Ruby Rose did an okay job. Jasiva Leslie, I think her name is. She was great. She was a great Batwoman. I loved her story. I loved the way she came to be Batwoman. But it's not any of the cast's fault that show came out at the wrong time. That show came out when nobody cared. Um, Batwoman is such a weird character, I would say, to write because she's not Batman, right? But she's not Batgirl, which is a lot more well known. But Batwoman is just Batwoman came out when the quality of the CW shows went down, and whether that's because of COVID or what's that for, who knows. But Batwoman came out at the wrong time. I think it just wasn't meant to be. And although there were parts, season three, I will say I didn't like. I think the only thing I liked on season three was Jasiva's Batwoman. But season two was a great season. Season one was shaky. Season three wasn't that good. Season two was great. But again, I think just because of the time that it came out, it was destined to fail, and that's nobody's fault. I mean, it just happens. But there are things about Batwoman that I enjoyed, and there were things that I wanted to enjoy more. And Batwoman, unfortunately, at the bottom, but it wasn't the worst when it comes to superhero projects in general. I didn't rank Naomi because I haven't seen it. I don't care to see it. Uh, this isn't even James Gunn level of random character. Naomi is probably the most random character. I watched one episode and I thought it was okay. Just I was not interested. And same with Gotham Knights. I couldn't care less. Gotham Knights, I heard one good thing about Gotham Knights. Other than that, I couldn't care. So that's my ranking. We'll go over. The Flash is one. Arrow, Superman and Lois, Legends, Stargirl, Supergirl, Black Lightning, Batwoman. I'll say this to anybody. I don't care what you think. I will say if you are at all interested in any parts of any of these shows, go watch them if you haven't. I The Arrowverse created some of the best years of my childhood, and from 2016 to whenever it ended, 2023, I was an Arrowverse fanatic. I still am. I still love it. I know it's okay. It's normalized to hate on the Arrowverse, but I loved it. And again, it created some of the best years of my childhood. So definitely check out any of the shows, all of the shows. If you're interested in at all anything that I said, I would watch it. We're definitely, like I said, we're definitely going to do an Arrowverse show in the future, Arrowverse episode in the future. Like I did with Star Wars last week, I'll probably have some of my Arrowverse collectibles. We'll deep dive into some of my favorites, some of my least favorites. We'll talk why. So that'll come up in the next few months. But Arrowverse episode, definitely, like I said, it's my favorite thing that DC has done. And I know it's going to change because DC is now on the rise. But the Arrowverse, we will definitely cover some way, somehow we will cover the Arrowverse because I love talking about it. And talking about future of DC, where I want to talk a bit about James Gunn. I know there's a lot of controversy, not just about James Gunn himself, but about the direction DC's going. People are like, oh, Superman should be called Diaper Man, or James Gunn sucks, or James Gunn can't do this. James Gunn fired Henry Cavill, who wasn't a great Superman. He just looked like him. Um, but nobody was saying that when the Suicide Squad came out. Everybody loved it. Everybody loved Peacemaker when that came out. So this is something where I'm kind of like, I'm torn because I don't want to fall into the trap of hating on the DCEU and Zack Snyder because he created a few bad projects. Because again, Man of Steel, although I'm not the biggest fan of Henry Cavill's Superman, I'm not going to say he doesn't deserve to be recognized for his time as Superman, or I'm not going to say that Man of Steel was an absolutely awful movie because Man of Steel was an okay movie. Sure, it didn't feel like Superman, but everybody has their own opinion on Superman. But I think James Gunn has it. I think James Gunn has it, had it with Suicide Squad, like I talked about. I'm wearing my You Can't See Me hat, my John Cena, just because of Peacemaker. I don't have my Flash hat on me. So I wore my John Cena hat just to mention Peacemaker. But I think James Gunn did two fantastic projects. Nobody can deny, no matter how much they want to cover it up and say, oh, James Gunn sucks. This Superman looks like trash. No one can deny that this Superman movie looks awesome. It does. Uh, Everything about the Superman trailer, which as we get closer, I will do a Superman episode based fully, based fully on the trailers that we've seen, my predictions, and we'll probably do that. We'll do a week before Superman comes out. I'll talk all about it. We'll do a reaction. We'll do a full spoiler review. And then maybe we'll do another episode after where I have a guest come on and we talk about Superman. We'll figure that out, but we'll do a full Superman 2025 episode. But this Superman movie looks awesome. We got Guy Gardner, we got Hawker, we got Mr. Terrific, we got Superman, we got Maxwell Lord. We have who else did we see? Lois, Jimmy Olsen, obviously Clark, uh, Mom Pa Kent. So we have all these characters who some of them, like the first few I talked about, or the first four I talked about, um, don't need to be in the movie, right? Like they're not crazy characters that are like, oh my gosh, you have to see them. But they all look so good. And then we just saw the Peacemaker trailer come out for season two on Friday. And oh my gosh, that looks awesome too. So how can we sit here and hate on James Gunn when he so far gave us two awesome trailers and every look that we've had, whether it's the Green Lantern, the actual set pictures of Hal Jordan and John Stewart, or if it's the set leaks of Supergirl and Lobo, or I don't care what it is, if it's Clayface, if it's Sergeant Rock. I'm just happy we're getting DC stuff, and James Gunn is giving that to us. Now, I'm not saying blindly follow everything and like everything because you got to take everything with a grain of salt. You have to take a look at the last few years of Marvel and Star Wars. You have to even take that with a grain of salt. And I love both fandoms on their own as well. I love Marvel. I've loved Marvel since 2018. I've loved Star Wars as long as I could remember. But I can criticize and I can be skeptical of what's coming out. I was skeptical about Creature Commandos, although it was shaping up to be a real good show leading up the trailers, everything. I was skeptical. He released it. It was fantastic. Superman, I think I have maybe too much faith in. I'm not gonna try and overhype myself, but ever since that theme song came out, I was on a flight to Arizona in December. Um, Listened to that theme song for about 7 hours of that whole trip. Uh, and all weekend, I'm overhyping myself. I definitely am for the Superman movie, but I am excited. Lanterns, I love Hal Jordan. We talked about this in the episode where I ranked the DC characters. Hal Jordan's one of my favorite superheroes, DC at least. Peacemaker, I love John Cena. Obviously, I'm a WWE guy as well, and I love season one. I'm in the middle of rewatching that. Rewatched the Suicide Squad this morning, and now I'm rewatching Peacemaker. Next is Creature Commandos, just so I'm ready for Rick Flag Sr. in Superman, and then in Peacemaker season two. So who's another character who doesn't need to be in Superman and is. So again, we're getting these DC things that James Gunn is giving us, and what can I say? I'm getting DC projects. I love DC. I've always been a DC guy, so I could be happy. So going into the DCU, I'm going to talk about my top five most anticipated projects for the DCU. Um, I'm not going to talk about Superman or Peacemaker because those are coming out in the next few months. Obviously, I'm excited for those. So I'm going to go past. This is in no particular order. These are just the five projects that I am excited to see going forward. So I think one is Lanterns. Everybody knows that from that Lanterns looks like it's going to be it's shaping up to be a good project. And if you've watched me before, I love Hal Jordan, I love John Stewart, I love the Green Lantern Corps, and I'm excited to see Guy Gardner. So Lanterns is like probably the number one on my list, but again, no particular order. Two is Supergirl. I'm excited for Millie Alcock. I'm excited for Jason Momoa. I'm excited for all these Supergirl characters to finally get a movie. I said it before, Supergirl. I loved Supergirl, the TV show, at least at the beginning, and I'm really excited to see a Supergirl movie like this one. Uh, Three is Brave and the Bold. I think that's another obvious. It's Batman, and it's the start of. It's not the start of a new universe, but it's in the new universe. So we're gonna get Damian Wayne if they go straight from the Brave and the Bold comics, which I'm sure they are. Damian Wayne, Bruce Wayne, Talia. We're gonna get all these characters as well, which will also, push us into the DCU. Uh, Brave and the Bold is going to be probably very different from the Batman. I'm not the Batman with Robert Pattinson fan. I don't hate it anymore. I still haven't seen the Penguin, which I'm definitely going to get to watch. Um, I'm definitely a big fan of Colin Farrell as the Penguin, but again, I need to watch watch the Penguin, and maybe it'll get me more excited for the Batman 2. But with all these delays and everything, I don't know. The Batman is just my number one. Uh, Not number one on my list, but Brave and the Bold will be different. It's James Gunn, and I'm a big James Gunn guy. He definitely um keeps it all very comic accurate, and I am a big comic accuracy guy. Not everything has to be comic accurate, but I do enjoy comic accurate things. So uh, Brave and the Bold, like I said, Lantern, Supergirl, Brave and the Bold, three. Booster Gold, we know nothing about this project. I'm sure they're still working on it. I'm sure it's not necessarily, in the works, but they still have it at the back of their mind. I'm sure he's been writing slowly on it. I'm very excited for Booster Gold. I'm a big Booster Gold fan. I want to see it done well. We haven't seen a live action Booster Gold. We haven't really seen an animated besides in the few other cartoons Booster Gold. So I just want to see a good Booster Gold DCU project to tie it into everything else. And number five is Teen Titans. I know this hasn't, this has been announced, but it hasn't been big in the news because it's kind of his more secretive project. So Teen Titans, whatever team they go with for the Teen Titans, I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see how James Gunn does it, and I'm a big Teen Titans guy. I love Teen Titans Go, the original cartoon, even the Young Justice. I know they're a little different, but Young Justice cartoon. I'm a big younger superhero type of guy, so I think that Teen Titans is definitely top five most anticipated. And there are more that he just this past weekend or this past week even I know a fan asked James Gunn, "Hey, the new script you're working on." I think James Gunn posted a picture of his dog or his cat sitting on a script, and a fan replied saying, "Hey, is this a new script, like something you haven't announced, or something we know about?" And he said something completely new. So there are things in the works. I again, I have my faith and my trust in James Gunn. I think that people may be angry still. There's only like five Snyderverse guys left and they're allowed to love the Snyderverse, but I think it's time to realize that it is older and we're in a new era of DC. And that's okay because I had to really accept that the Arrowverse was over when that ended. And I'm excited for the future and I could still love the Arrowverse and I could still be excited for James Gunn because again, James Gunn is my favorite director. When it comes to superhero projects. Favorite director overall, I'd really have to study and deep dive into who my favorite is. But if we're going into superhero projects alone, James Gunn is number one. Um, so I'm really excited to see how, this DCU turns out. Superman, I cannot wait for Peacemaker. I loved season one of rewatching it now. I cannot wait for season two and Supergirl and Lanterns. I know Supergirl just finished shooting. Lanterns is a couple episodes have been finished filming. So we have a lot, to be ready for and to be excited for. And as DC fans, whoever is, I think that the best thing is to be excited. Be wary, of course. I'm not saying, open arms trust, but if you look at his track record, Guardians 1, 2, and 3, Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, I think we could trust in him enough to at least deliver good projects. And it looks like he is because he's not taking full control where he's writing absolutely everything all the time. He is handing out projects to people he trusts. And if he trusts them and looking at some of their past projects, I think I can trust them enough to write good superhero movies, whether it's Supergirl or Lanterns or um, Brave and the Bold or the Batman 2, Matt Reeves. I know the team. I don't know if any of you guys saw it, but the team that is behind Lanterns, they've been announcing slowly. VFX from The Last of Us, stunts from here, some of these great movies. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I remember VFX from Last of Us, and that's really it. But all these different HBO directors who are or cast members who are coming together to create Lanterns. I think Lanterns is shaping up to look awesome and be an awesome TV show just overall. Um, so that's really all I had. There's one more thing I want to talk about. This is something that I've only spoke to a few people about. People who know me personally know that I like to write. Uh, I'm a big fan of writing movies and scripts in general. And I've been working on my own project, Ink and Intrigue, which is a tale about 1950s New York. It's me and a couple other writers who are working on a show. Maybe one day I'll actually do a shorter episode on that. Maybe sometime this week. I don't know. I have to really look and see. But Ink and Intrigue is a really fun project. One day, maybe me and the other two writers will come on and we'll talk a bit about the project when it's a little more padded out. But I thought of this project a while ago and now I'm actually working on it. But that's not the project I want to talk about. There's another project that I'm writing. Now, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't think I want to actually film it. I came up with these ideas as a new DC universe before James Gunn announced his, and I went in order and I kind of did them into phases like Marvel, which isn't it's not going to say like that, but it was kind of just for me to visualize. And I've been working on a story for quite some time, and I enjoy it. And I think I might do an audio series, kind of like I forgot what it's called on Max, but there's a Flash one. There's Batman the audio files that's also on Max, and I think I might do it like that. I don't know. I really have to see how I'm gonna do it, but I've been working on a Green Arrow script. I'm midway through the story, I would say. I have everything laid out. It's just transferring it to paper, which Green Arrow, the Green Arrow story has been the easiest for me. So the Green Arrow script is one that, like I said, I've been working on for a few years. It's called Green Arrow Blade of the Dragon. That's all I'm going to give out now. There's I've had a lot of fun working on it, and again, it's nowhere near completed. I The script itself is nowhere near completed, but it's something that I definitely want to work on and bring to this channel eventually. So that's something I just wanted to, I'm talking about TC, I might as well add that in. But I'm thinking about doing a an audiophile type audio series on that, and it would be broken up into episodes instead of just one long movie. I don't know though. That's something that I have time to figure out, and but like I said, I haven't really brought that to anybody. There's a few people who know about that project in particular, but I'm working on that and I'm working on more because I do want, to write and create a universe out of it. DC, like I said, has always been my favorite. I started writing with the Star Wars project and I kind of branched out to more DC Marvel because I feel like superheroes is a lot easier for me to write when it comes to characters and what I know. And there's a lot of source material. So again, I just wanted to put people on the lookout, knowing that it's coming. There's a lot of work to be done on it still, but it's just something I'm talking about DC. I've been working on it a lot recently, so I definitely wanted to share it now. But with that being said, thank you all for watching this great episode, fun to record. And, I'm always open to ideas. I'm open to any critiques or criticism. Please let me know. I'm trying to make this podcast more enjoyable for myself. I mean, not myself. I enjoy filming this and I enjoy talking about all these things, but I'm trying to make it more enjoyable for the people watching. So please, any critiques, anything, please let me know. I do want, like I said, I am going to make the studio a lot better. Um, I'm going to work on actually my camera. I'm going to make sure that's a lot better because the Zoom thing is great for quick and easy recordings, but it's not bringing the podcast to where I want it to be. So soon, it's all going to be fixed. Like I said, I got my camera. I'm working on ways like that to enhance it. So please, any ideas or anything, just let me know. I'm open to everything, and I do want to try everything out. Next few weeks, I'll probably do things differently, kind of just testing things out. But 6 episodes in, I'm really excited. Hit the ground. I I have 33 subscribers, and it's like, wow, just for talking for a few hours, I have subscribers. Like that's a crazy thing to think about. Um, but I've enjoyed doing this so far, and I'm going to continue. And I have a lot of great stuff lined up next week. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about. I'm going to have a whole list of things throughout this week. I'm going to plan. And I have an episode that I have planned out with a friend. We're going to talk all about Disney World. I've been wanting to do a Disney World episode for a while. So, you know, be ready. There's a lot coming. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. And I will definitely, talk to y'all later. Bye bye.